Okay, so I think in the interest of time, we can get started and hopefully you can hear me and see my screen okay. So I'd like to say good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody, depending where in the world you are joining us from today. And welcome to this webinar as part of Love Data Week, where hopefully I can give you some more insights into the Research Data Alliance and also our recent work that we've been doing on Agentic AI and artificial intelligence, and particularly our recent community consultation on Agentic AI in research. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Connie Clare, and I'm the Global Community Development Manager at the Research Data Alliance. So I'll be presenting this session here today, and then tomorrow we have a repeat session, which is for the Oceania and East Asia time zone, which is going to be presented by my colleague and community development counterpart, Trish, in that particular region. I'd also like to just say a special thanks to my colleagues, Secretary General of the RDA, Hilary Hanaho, and also our Global Events Manager, Irina Hope, who are on this call today helping with the Zoom logistics, admitting people and such. I would like to also let you know that these slides will be available. We'll circulate them via an email afterwards. So if you want to access them, reuse them, and use any of the links and information, you'll be welcome to do so. So a bit of housekeeping just before we begin. So this session is being recorded and we will be publishing it on the RDA web platform. So please, if you're not speaking, if you keep yourself muted just to minimize any background noise, that would be much appreciated. We do like to see your faces, so you're welcome to keep cameras on if you wish to, but of course, if you feel more comfortable with them off, that's also okay. This is an RDA organised event, so we will be adhering to the RDA's Code of Conduct, which Hilary will share in the chat. So just to remind you, agentic AI and AI in general can be somewhat contentious, so please do respect all the perspectives shared today. There will be some time for a Q&A at the end of the session. So as we're going through the presentation, please drop them into the chat, and Hilary will kindly read them out on your behalf. If you wish to unmute, you will also have an opportunity to do so. If you have any questions or comments about the work that is presented today, you're also welcome to email us in the Secretariat, and I've also added Hilary's contact details on there so you can reach out to her if you wish to. So in the next 25 minutes or so, I'd like to take you through a whistle-stop tour. First of all, talking a bit about the Research Data Alliance, our vision, our mission, and our important guiding principles, the different types of membership that we offer, as well as the great work that the volunteer community groups are doing to generate the flagship recommendations and outputs that are openly available for adoption and reuse around the world. And then for the second part, this is where I'll talk a bit more about our recent activities on AI, which have led us to this community consultation on agentic AI, and then I'll share some high-level opportunities and challenges that have been identified by the community before sharing the next steps for how you might possibly be able to get involved if you wish to. So about the RDA was established back in 2013. So actually in March this year, RDA becomes a teenager at 13 years old. It's an international member-based organisation that is focused on the development of infrastructure and community activities that reduce barriers to data sharing and accelerate data-driven innovation around the world. And we're very proud to say that in this time, we have grown to comprise more than 16,000 members, spanning 150 different countries. So geographically, we are very global, but also in terms of the membership, we welcome any stakeholder from the research data ecosystem, from researchers, data support staff, data stewards, research software engineers, librarians, funders, and publishers are all welcome, whether you are domain agnostic or also focused on a specific discipline. Our vision, mission, and guiding principles, as I said, are very important to us. So we want to provide a global neutral platform for stakeholders to come together to openly share and reuse data across boundaries, so across technologies, disciplines, and countries to address the grand challenges of society. And the community works together to build the social and technical bridges that enable open sharing and reuse of data. So at the heart of everything that we do in the community are these 6 guiding principles of openness, consensus, inclusivity, harmonization, we are community driven and non-profit and technology neutral, which means that all of the work created by the community is openly available for adoption and reuse by anyone, anywhere in the world. So this slide here just shows the different types of membership that we offer at the RDA. And I think the one that is probably most relevant here is the individual membership, of which we have those 16,000 volunteers. They are really the beating heart of the community and the strategic think tank that come together to collaborate in groups to generate the outputs. We're also fortunate to be supported by more than 90 different organisations, which form our organisational assembly. And this assembly interacts and collaborates to implement solutions. So the idea is that they would adopt and implement and customize the outputs of the community to their own organizational and institutional context. And then, as I mentioned, we're global, so we have more than 35 different regions that support our work, and they are bringing their local, linguistic, and cultural perspective to the RDA. Again, sharing best practices, experiences, and common needs. The idea here is to achieve efficiency and harmonization, and to reduce duplication of efforts and the need to reinvent the wheel around the world. So why would you join the Research Data Alliance? Well, firstly, I'd just like to say it is free and open for anybody who is interested to join us, and you really can get involved as little or as much as you wish to through joining the groups to contribute to the acceleration of data infrastructure developments. You can also, of course, meet like-minded people and make friends, just like I have done, become part of a global community and really expand your own personal and professional network. You can also bring your own innovative ideas to create groups and create recommendations and outputs, as well as adopt and access those outputs. And as a bare minimum, you would receive a monthly newsletter to receive the regular updates on the work of the community. Regardless of your background, career stage, or domain, you can gain expertise in data-related topics of interest through joining the groups, but also events like this, including the webinars, workshops, and our 2 plenary meetings that take place twice a year. So this slide here just shows you the different types of community groups. And as you can see, we've got around 112 active groups at the moment. If you were to go to the groups directory, you would see working groups, interest groups, and communities of practice. Very briefly, working groups have a finite lifespan and work towards the delivery of recommendations such as development of tools, policies, practices, and products for data. Interest groups are slightly broader in scope. They're focused on solving specific data sharing problems, but it's more about identifying what kinds of infrastructure need to be built. And so these tend to lead towards the emergence of new working groups. And more recently, in 2020, we launched communities of practice, which are much larger in scope again. And these are disciplinary groups. The idea here is they bridge the disciplinary groups within the RDA, but also with external communities and initiatives. So the general output is really the emergence of new groups and bridge building externally as well. So this was generated with the assistance of AI, and this shows a snapshot in time of the different RDA groups that we have. So as you can see here, we have a series of groups that focus on particular research domains from life sciences and health through to physical, materials, and space sciences. We also have a range of groups that focus on the technical infrastructure, such as metadata frameworks, their principles, as well as repositories and technical systems. We have a number of groups that focus on cross-cutting themes of data governance, as well as education and training, global collaboration, and research evaluation and reproducibility and other open science concepts, as well as those that focus on emerging areas and technologies such as AI and machine learning, digital twins, the Internet of Things, non-traditional research outputs, and also future challenges in terms of data sustainability and also data resilience. So again here, I won't labour this point too much, but like you see with everything at the RDA, there are multiple different facets to it. And so the groups are generating recommendations and outputs. Recommendations are typically more like specifications or standards generated by working groups that are endorsed by council and reviewed by the community. Supporting outputs are also other useful solutions that are generated by groups, and these undergo a community review process. And you might also see in the catalogue of recommendations and outputs, other outputs, which are workshop slides, reports, published articles, survey results, etc. So you are free to have a look at the range of different things that the groups produce. So if you were to join the RDA and you wanted to get involved in a group, as I mentioned, we have our groups directory, and you can search and filter for the different types of groups and topics you're interested in. The example that I'm showing here on the screen is the Artificial Intelligence and Data Visitation Working Group. And if you look at the home page, you will see the chairs who are involved in driving the group's mission and vision, and the general information about the group, as well as posts. So these are the latest conversations and updates from the group. We also importantly here have their recommendations and outputs that have been created by groups, as well as the plenary session submissions, events that they're involved in, and their membership. And as you can see, the button here, which is Join Group in green, is where you would be able to join and then receive the latest updates. So now I'd like to start telling you a bit more about the work that we've been doing on artificial intelligence. And just to point you in the direction of the web platform, we do have a dedicated web page that outlines the latest projects and activities, any publications, white papers, reports that we've produced, as well as recordings and slides, and any past and future events. We also have a section on this page that shows community experts. So these are individuals from the RDA community and beyond who have contributed to some of our efforts in this area. We also provide information there about future work and how to get involved, and relevant RDA groups that might be of interest for you to join. So on that note, just to share some ideas for groups here and activities, and this is not an exhaustive list, but we do have the AIDV, or the Artificial Intelligence and Data Visitation Working Group, and this is all about the legal, ethical, social and technical aspects of AI in relation to open science. More recently, we also had the Fair Runtime Environments Working Group endorsed. And as the name implies, this is about applying the FAIR principles, so findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable, those principles to runtime environments to make, for example, AI experiments more reproducible. A more established interest group that's been around for quite some time now is the FAIR for Machine Learning interest group, and this is continuing those discussions on applying FAIR principles to machine learning data, models, and workflows. And a group that is not yet endorsed, but waiting in the wings to be endorsed at some point, hopefully, is the Computational Modelling of Health Data Working Group. And so, as you can imagine, of course, machine learning and AI techniques are becoming more prevalent and particularly important in health data as well. So I'd also like to share some newly emerging topics of interest. At the Research Data Alliance, we have something called BOFs, or Birds of a Feather sessions, and these are where the community can propose new ideas to see if they'll gain momentum and traction among the community. So a couple of years ago, at our 19th plenary meeting, we had a session on discussing the overlaps in FAIR principles of data management and AI readiness. Actually, recently in October in Brisbane in Australia, as part of our 25th plenary meeting, we had a session on documenting large language model interactions throughout the research lifecycle. And in March, we have our virtual plenary from the 16th to the 20th of March, and we have a session which is proposed on autonomous agents at the gate, accelerating data visitation. So something that is very relevant to this particular topic today. And on the note of our plenary meetings, if you're not aware, I have posted the links, and Hilary will also post them in the chat. So as I mentioned, we have a fully online virtual plenary taking place in 4 weeks' time, which you are very welcome to join. And towards the end of the year, from the 6th to the 8th of October, we'll be heading to London for our 27th plenary meeting. And so if anybody here is willing and able to travel, we'd love to see you there. So I'd now like to talk a bit about the journey that RDA has taken in AI and some of our previous activities, which formally really started in September 2024, where we ran a series of workshops on the state of artificial intelligence within the community. And community members shared perspectives on AI's opportunities and challenges. And they recognised transformative potential in this particular area, but also many different gaps, such as data readiness, infrastructure sustainability, sensitive data management, and also how to bridge the gap between AI policy and practical implementation. There is a report and a summary that I've linked there, and it will also be shared with you in the chat too. And then a few months later, moving on from that, we wanted to also look at AI in action. So we wanted to find out how researchers are really using artificial intelligence in their daily workflows, and not just researchers, but other data support or data professionals. So we heard from 9 speakers from around the world who shared various different experiences and also challenges. So an example that we heard from is about ensuring reproducible machine learning models in the life sciences using the DOME framework. We also heard from data support staff on why, or using generative AI, to automate research software engineering tasks such as generating code and documentation. And we also heard from a researcher in Italy who used open source AI models to pre-process CT scans for lung cancer screening. So there were some very different examples there to show you how researchers are using that in context. And I'm sure you have your own examples as well. But these are outlined in the report, which is linked in the slides if you'd like to look at it further. The next step really last year in May 2025 was to collaborate with one of our organisational members, Microsoft, and this was in alignment with our public-private partnership model. So at the RDA, we appreciate that to advance open science and good research data management practice, we can't work in a silo, we have to work across sectors. And so we collaborated with Microsoft on a topic of mutual interest, which at that time was data readiness and data-centric AI. And we wanted to understand better how researchers prepare data for AI and develop the skills they need for AI-driven research. And in these roundtables, we had a small subset of experts that came together to have a deep dive and rich discussion on these topics. And many of the discussions were around the importance of the FAIR principles for data readiness, also data quality being so important over data quantity, that we need to be aware of bias, of course, and trustworthy data, ensuring complete representative data sets that are statistically appropriate, well documented, with machine actionable metadata, and of course, provenance, the lineage of data and licensing was also important. Here we had a comprehensive white paper and summary slides if you'd like to read more about the outcomes of that roundtable. A month later in June, we also focused on high performance computing and quantum to determine how these emerging technologies transform research capabilities. Again, this was all summarised in the white paper for you to read. So during that first roundtable on data readiness and data-centric AI, there was a community need identified that in order to achieve data readiness, of course, we need robust metadata standards and dedicated stewardship roles, but there was also this need to invest in automated data preparation tools. And in line with that thought about automation, Agentic AI also emerged as a top area of interest and a skilling need. And so with this in mind, we decided to run this global community consultation on Agentic AI in support of science and research. And this took place in November at the end of last year. So this was on the premise that AI agents can autonomously assist with various different research tasks throughout the research lifecycle, from data analysis through to data publication to research evaluation and impact. And that having these agents helping with certain tasks could speed up research, it could reduce costs, it could save time, and also provide access to tools that might not otherwise be available. So we ran a survey and ran several online information sessions to find out how the research community is currently using Agentic AI, what are the needs and challenges that might exist, and where could, or probably more importantly, how could Agentic AI have the greatest impact? And all of these findings are written out in an open report. And what we would like to do, and I'll come back to this towards the end, is focus our attention on developing with the community an open technology agnostic blueprint for a priority AI agent. So before I begin talking a bit more about the consultation and the findings, I'd just like to reflect a bit on what we mean by agentic AI. I'm sure some of you in the audience have different perceptions and definitions. You're very welcome to share them in the chat. Of course, we will consider them as we continue this work going forward. But we did have to use a definition for the purpose of the consultation. And so this was the definition that we agreed upon, that agentic AI refers to artificial intelligence systems that possess autonomy, goal-directed reasoning, and the ability to act independently with minimal human oversight, so that there are multiple LLMs or processes within the pipeline, and there is no human intervention, but it's very much driven by AI. And this is in contrast, of course, to traditional models that we might know about that typically respond directly to prompts. As I mentioned, we ran some information sessions across different time zones, and these were open to all stakeholders within the research community, regardless of AI expertise. We had live polling throughout the sessions to capture real-time feedback on the needs, concerns, and priorities of participants. And these information sessions also invited expert speakers to talk about their own experiences of using agentic AI. So, for example, Moji from QSIF in Australia talked about how to build your own literature review agentic AI. Harang from Johns Hopkins in the US talked about collaborating with and building AI agents. Now, Harang has a startup, but his research background is also in personality pairing with AI agents and how this can actually enhance team performance and dynamics. Mukesh from A-Star in Singapore talked about agentic AI for research data platforms and particularly gave the example of the Gusto Data Vault, which is a enormously large health database which has millions of data points, and they have integrated a literature review agent in there as well to obviously undertake literature review, but also to generate research hypotheses. Ugochi from University Port Harcourt in Nigeria talked about the prospect and principle of using agentic AI in agricultural research and particularly crop image analysis and tomato leaf detection. And finally, Ryan from Microsoft in the UK talked about the proposal of using agentic AI tools throughout the research lifecycle. And Ryan was actually involved in an engagement with more than 50 universities and institutions within the UK to find out where agentic AI could possibly have the most benefit throughout the research lifecycle. And from that engagement came 11 proposed agentic AI tools, and I'll show you those now on the next slide. So you can see those listed and ranked there on the right-hand side. So throughout November, aside running those information sessions, we had this community survey that was open for a month. We gathered 83 complete responses, and the largest group of respondents were researchers and scientists. The large majority, so around 90%, had used AI or ML tools in their work, but over half of them had not either heard of or specifically used agentic AI systems. We asked in this survey, we proposed these 11 different tools and provided some descriptions on their features and functionalities. And we asked respondents to evaluate those tools based on their usefulness. So whether they were very useful, somewhat useful, not useful at all. And then what we did was use a weighted scoring mechanism to rank them. And this is where you can see the ranking on the slide. And you can see the top three tools. The first prioritized tool was a literature librarian. The second was the data director, and the third was the funding finder. And as you can see towards the bottom of the list, we have collaboration catalyst, publication preparer, and the ethics reviewer. So just to show you a bit more about what each of these tools are proposed to do. In the center, of course, here you see the research data lifecycle from the generation of a new research idea through to reporting on research output and impact. And you can see how these different 11 tools feature in relation to the research lifecycle. So the priority tool of the literature librarian was proposed to use natural language literature searching, and it would integrate with library contracts and subscriptions with publishers to access articles, both open access and behind paywalls. The second tool was the data director, which could possibly automatically create metadata to ensure compliance with the FAIR and FAIR squared principles, which is specifically for AI, that it could also mint DOIs for data sets and also provide guidance on where data could be archived or published in certain repositories to be compliant with certain requirements. And then the third tool that was prioritized in third place was the funding finder. And this would scan funding databases to match calls with research ideas. It could possibly provide a template for funding applications to ensure you meet guidelines, but also suggest improvements for proposals based on previous successful applications. And as you might imagine, as these were reviewed, there were various different positives and opportunities, but also some challenges and barriers that were faced. And so I would like to encourage you to read the report to really see all of the different nuances and thoughts and perspectives of the community. So now I would like to move on to the very high level opportunities. Unfortunately, we don't have time to go through the pros and cons of each of the tools, but I would like to share some of those high level opportunities and challenges of Agentic AI because they are quite reflective and quite repetitive across some of these tools as well. So a significant gain that was identified was automation and efficiency, and the idea of having a AI team member or a counterpart could really augment human capacity, could speed up various different research tasks, and of course, reduce time and cost, which would in turn reduce administrative burden. So there was this notion that if we could have AI agents that could really do those tasks that researchers find valuable but don't always have the time to do, such as creating metadata, checking compliance with funding requirements, searching vast amounts of literature, and formatting proposals or other documents would be quite useful. Also, some thought that it could democratize access to support, that it would be valuable to those smaller organizations that have limited resources and limited data support staff, and it could bring them onto a more level playing field with organizations that are better resourced. Many thought that agentic AI tools could help to navigate complex research ecosystems that are becoming increasingly more convoluted and complex to navigate. It could help researchers find those scattered and also very niche and small funding opportunities. Again, it could search vast amounts of literature, particularly in certain disciplines where there are hundreds of thousands of papers published every month. And it could also find appropriate data repositories. And finally, that some of these tools could improve standardization and quality of work and research, reducing human error and also enhancing consistency in metadata, working towards machine actionable metadata, and also compliance with the FAIR principles for better research data management. And of course, these opportunities were also balanced with challenges, as you might expect, and I'm sure you can also identify with some of these that I will present now. So a main challenge was accuracy and trust deficits, the fact that AI is still unreliable, it's not always correct, it can hallucinate, and so constant checking of errors would require a lot of time to verify AI's outputs. And also in certain contexts, particularly in funding and understanding the funding landscape, AI does have this inability to handle nuances that the human brain can cope with. Of course, as we automate more processes, the black box idea becomes more prevalent. And so there was some concerns about transparency and explainability gaps, researchers not being able to understand how the models work and so can't really defend the processes. There's also issues with misrepresenting data in metadata, for example, or propagating buzzwords in funding circles that could stifle innovation. I think one of the challenges that also resonates quite strongly with me is this one here. So loss of research skills and critical judgment, reduced hands-on interaction with various tasks throughout the research lifecycle could diminish abilities for researchers to justify their conclusions and maintain their critical research competencies. A really good example that was shared in the report was ethics review, and that it's so important to go through that personally with the ethics review board to really understand why you're doing the things you're doing in research and the risks and the consequences that this has. This leads us on to the next challenge, that human oversight is still imperative, especially with ethics and sensitive data. And we need to be very aware that there is a serious risk of error with error propagation with automated processes. And finally, while some said that Agentic AI could democratize access to certain support, it could also enhance infrastructure and equity barriers, because it very much depends on institutional policies, library contracts, and IT protocols. So there will still be unequal access, possibly vendor lock-in in the future, and sustainability concerns. And of course, we have to be mindful as well that there are financial and environmental costs to AI and Agentic AI. So with all that in mind, we had many valuable insights, as I'm sure you can appreciate, and we want to take these through this year for our next phase of work, which we're hoping to work with the community, as I mentioned, on this open technology agnostic blueprint for a priority Agentic AI tool. This will, of course, be executed within the framework of the Research Data Alliance and will adhere to those guiding principles that I shared at the start of the presentation. So it will be openly available for adoption and reuse by anybody once this has been created. So if you'd like to get involved, you can drop your name in the chat, but you can also directly email me and I'll add you to our growing list of people who are interested. And on that note, I share our contact details, and I would like to say thank you very much for your attention. It feels like I've spoken for quite some time, and I think we have 10 minutes or so now for questions. So I'll stop sharing, and perhaps I can hand over to Hilary to ask some questions.